This is Dennis Ramundi here with the Coffee League, found at thecoffeeleague.com. My guest today, Mr. Michael Opitz, who I'm speaking to. He's in Germany right now, where he is managing director of the Neumann Foundation. Michael, thank you so very much for taking the time to come on and speak with me today.
Pleasure.
Tell us a little bit about the Neumann Foundation, what the mission of that organization is.
Okay, the Neumann Foundation is a non-profit organization established by the Neumann family, and it has this major objective of supporting livelihood concepts of coffee farmers worldwide. The Neumann Foundation is supporting producers in a number of producing countries and currently runs about 30 projects in 15 different countries, reaching up to 170,000 smallholder farmers and their families. Neumann, it's an important name in the coffee sector, in the coffee industry, because the family also has shares in Neumann Kaffee Gruppe, which is the largest trading operation. But the foundation is independent of that. It has its own life, and following its objectives, it definitely distracts significantly from commercial operations.
And how did you get involved with the organization? What was your path to them?
Well, I had the opportunity of meeting Mr. Neumann in the early 90s when I was looking for a new job opportunity coming from development cooperation, working with the German government in a number of places. And I met him, and he was interested in developing a format where the coffee industry could contribute to the development of knowledge, of experiences in coffee business in producing countries. This was the time when the quota system of the International Coffee Organization collapsed, and a number of countries were just facing the situations of free market, and according to his assessment, were not well prepared for doing so. So he wanted to qualify better business partners, if you wish, but also sharing experiences how the operations in the coffee sector really work, and what are the opportunities for producers to participate more actively from these opportunities. So this was the starting point of that work, and it was a consulting company that we first established, which then over time it was decided, and I think it was a wise decision by the family, to protect the experiences that we are generating with all these different project interventions into an own format and long-term format, and also learnings that we had. This is important in order to also very seriously addressing all these different processes that are required to support producers in their livelihood concept. So it's a long-term affair, and this is what we also address with this long-term concept of a foundation.
Michael, what are some of the major issues that you and your organization are dealing with now in these countries?
Well, the situation of smallholder farmers is very much to our focus. So in so many places where we have operations with the foundation, but obviously where the coffee sector also has its commercial operations, these small-scale farmers are, if you wish, at the bottom of the pyramid. They are far away from very well accessible knowledge for improving their production systems. They are far away from the markets, are usually selling at farm gate to intermediaries, and not necessarily know about the quality of the product that they do have in their hands. So there is a lot of challenge around them. Support systems are not really effective to support them as entrepreneurs, and even policies not always address really the situation of the small-scale farmers. So this is the environment in which we operate, and we manage with operations, with projects, to give these farmers a better opportunity to first and foremost exchange amongst themselves in participatory processes. What are the problems, what are the challenges that they do face, and what are potential solutions? We can create these kinds of dynamics in these, let's say, forms of dialogue and forms of exchange, where farmers by themselves start to think, what are opportunities to improve a production system? what is the important element that the producer needs to steer, what is knowledge that he requires, so that we can then, with our experiences, more efficiently contribute to improvements that the farmers definitely want to undergo and want to undertake.
Now, even with what you're doing, and even with getting that information and communication with the farmers, are the financial resources there to do what you really need to do at this point, or will it take much more investment from those in the coffee industry to accomplish what you need to accomplish?
Very critical question, obviously. Definitely, this work that I'm describing, and that just started, because there are so many other processes that do need to be structured and need to be strengthened in order to give producers an opportunity to act as entrepreneurs. I think this is some of the crucial learnings also from the interventions that we have been supporting over the last 25 years. That smallholder farmers are very smart guys. They are very smart in taking decisions. They have, in many places, quite balanced production systems, where coffee is a part of a much more diversified production system. That is a hedge for them, because many crops, they have more ease for the farmers to generate the returns that they require for either having a balanced cash flow or for serving the needs of the families in terms of nutrition and food. So these are smart guys, but the pity is that they cannot behave and act as entrepreneurs due to the deficiency of the system around them.
What are some of the deficiencies? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, deficiencies in terms of access to knowledge, access to superior production practices, access to new varieties, access to inputs. And then also on the commercial side, the opportunity of entering higher value market segments. The supply chain for them, as I was initially mentioning, it starts at the farm gate, where they sell to an intermediary, and this intermediary sells to another one. It's a level of aggregation, of accumulation of volume before the coffee reaches the export level that takes place. And this ends up with the farmer getting only a fraction of the market value of the price that at the point of export, for instance, is being paid.
Is there a solution for this? What steps need to be taken to correct this?
Good point. Yes, there is a solution to that, and the solution is obviously in the systems around the producers to a large extent. But the systems also need to have a proper structure on the side of the producer. One of the key elements in our approaches, next to the support of the producer for optimizing coffee production and introducing good agricultural practices at that level, also managerial experiences to have better entrepreneurial conduct of its operation, is the organization building process. A farmer with a bag of coffee in his hand is nothing in the coffee industry that moves millions of bags around the globe. So he needs to also partner with his peers and create structures that can become more visible. On the one hand side, these structures, they can obviously commercialize coffee. They can help farmers to bulk their coffee, to aggregate volumes, and yet become a more visible and more attractive partner to other actors in the supply chain, while at the same time, these structures can also help farmers to access relevant services, be it on the side of inputs, be it on the side of finance. So this is a very important element, and definitely a crucial factor for helping the producers of evolving and thriving their development processes. Right. But these organizations need to also be understood by their members, and need to be quite transparent in order to have really a meaningful service for their members, for their members.
But I'm wondering, in the areas where much of the coffee is produced, specialty coffee, Central America, South America, Eastern Africa, are the governments there, both on the national and local levels, helpful or a hindrance to the work that you're doing?
All in all, I would think they are helpful, they are interested. I think also there work needs to be done to enhance the level of cooperation and the level of understanding of the contributions that each different party needs to make in order to bring such kind of experiences to a greater, to a wider scope and higher level. I think the project intervention by itself, it does not necessarily, if it's small, it does not necessarily already require that kind of government support. But if an experience being generated, an experience really generating an impact that is desirable from a also development political context by the authorities of a country or a region, then definitely any step that goes beyond and tries to bring this experience into the wider context, into scale, it requires a very thorough process where definitely the roles and the contributions of all these different partners need to be very systematically assessed and brought into context.
Let's talk about that. When you're doing a project now through the Neumann Foundation, how systematized is it? And then once it's done, is it properly assessed so that you can continually evaluate what programs are working, not working, and reorganize whatever to be maximally efficient?
A project intervention, and this is the beauty about a project intervention, is a very focused way of addressing complex issues. So a project has its objectives, it has we call it outcomes. It's basically what the project is generating, and it has a number of results. So an immediate effect of an intervention, and this you can bring down into activities and sub-activities, and so it's a very systematic way of describing what you are supposed to implement and what you are supposed to achieve with this implementation. And if you structure it well, you also have a number of assumptions that you need to specify in order to make your operation work. So this entire model that I was briefly describing, we bring into a logic framework, which we call logical framework. It's a format that was developed by the development organizations many years ago, but it's still a very solid and a very important structure for being able to assess what you were mentioning. Are we successful and are we efficient with an operation? So this kind of intervention, it requires that you really specify all the different elements, and you also start an intervention by taking a photo through a ideally qualified external party as a baseline assessment of the situation that you encounter when you start an operation. Okay. And then over time, obviously there is measurement, there are a number of factors that you collect and information that you collect together with the farmers to also see together with them how is the production system improving, but even more so than at times also you invite third parties again to make an evaluation, a proper evaluation. Has the project worked and has the impact been achieved?
Give us an example of a specific project you're involved in right now.
Let's look into a country like Uganda, East Africa, very important coffee on the economic side for the country. I think it's the most important agricultural commodity for the country, and at least 1.5 million producers and their families living from coffee production. So there we have started very small with an intervention in 2003, I think, with around 3,000 producers and their families, and started to develop a model, how to engage with the farmers, what is an appropriate methodology, how to address these different issues, how to engage with the farmers in participatory processes. So we created farmer field schools where about 30 to 35 producers come together with their wives. We also involve young people in these kind of concepts so that also the generational change can be addressed. So we start with these models and also start talking about coffee. What are the challenges and what are potential improvements that the farmers would like to undergo? And then you can build on this curiosity that builds up in these kind of structured exchanges, and you can feed the curiosity with further information can connect them to technology and introduce new practices, which then again together with the producers by collecting output and input information, you can transform into economic assessments, gross margin assessments that together with the farmers can help them to understand what are the strongest, let's say, triggers for improvement in their income streams. Mm-hmm. And this goes on. Then the next level of curiosity is how can they commercialize their coffee better once the production has increased? How can they sell better? And this is when organization building processes come into place, and you start dialoguing with farmers and with leaders of the farmer communities around the concepts of cooperatives or farmer associations, so that the bulking of coffee and the accumulation of interest comes in, so that farmers then can also in their own structure, inside their own responsibilities, incorporate added value services like coffee hulling or processing to get, instead of the cherry, to get a green product that is storable and that can then also be sold in larger volumes directly to the exporters. So they are climbing up in the commercial value chain, right, and enter the market at a different level.
Right. Does the Neumann Foundation work with other organizations like World Coffee Research that works in similar areas, or is all your work independent?
We have a number of very important partners with whom we work, and I would also take this question, take advantage of this question again to go back to what you were asking before. Mm-hmm. Is there investment that is required? All our work, I mean, the foundation, yes, we have our own equity, but only part of that equity can be utilized in project intervention. So if we want to be strong, we definitely also need to motivate partners. And these partners, they first and foremost come from the coffee sector. So we work with a number of roasting companies, with trade companies, whom we invite into this project operations, but also with development organizations, including USAID as one of the partners with whom we operate. And yet also then knowledge partners comes in, like World Coffee Research. You were mentioning them, and we have a program where we also, supported by USAID, bring together a number of top-notch, I would think, research organizations around the issue of climate change. So World Coffee Research is part of that consortium together with CIAT, with IITA, with Conservation International, with Root Capital. So together we also look into the elements of synergies that are required to enable producers to more efficiently address the issues of climate change.
Mm-hmm. And are, like for instance in Europe and in the United States, the big coffee consumers, the big companies like Peet's, like Stumptown, like I think Nestle's now owns Blue Bottle, but these are big, very financially powerful groups. Are they getting behind your efforts, and if not, should they be?
I wish every actor in the coffee sector would go as deep as we currently are with our project interventions.
Because it seems like it's in their best interest to invest in what you are doing with the Neumann Foundation, because as my understanding is that the ability to produce specialty coffee may not meet the demand in a few years, so they will become dependent upon organizations like yours to figure out ways to deal with this in advance of the problem surfacing.
Yeah, the good thing is that the coffee sector is not sleeping. The coffee sector is active. Mm-hmm. So you have mentioned actors like Peet's, like Nestle's. There are many more, just to name a few of them. We are active in the coffee sector since a couple of years, and I think the coffee crisis in the beginning of the 2000s was really an important trigger for us to get our head around what do we mean with sustainability and how do we support sustainability. Unfortunately, the current programs that are or having been supported for a number of years, looking into certification, looking into models to bring good agricultural practices to the producer, they have more addressed the top of the pyramid. We have not yet managed to draw sufficient attention to the bottom of the pyramid, to those farmers who are large in number, who are very weakly organized, who are not that easy to reach because of this aggregation element that is linking, that is missing. So we have a bit opportunistically utilized resources in the sector to address sustainability in order to also show some action on the side of the coffee industry. So I would think, yes, it's important to ring the bell a bit louder for the needs of the small-scale farmers at the bottom of the pyramid, to support them in getting better organized and also to improve their production systems. And the logic is, as you rightly say, all the sector participants will basically depend on these guys in the future. Mm-hmm. You might accompany the coffee market, and we have a very stable development of demand. So the coffee sector is growing since years, since centuries almost. Since decades almost, with a very stable rate of 1 to 2% per year. And this, just projected from the current level of 150 million bags we are producing in the coffee sector annually, would require by 2030 another 50 million bags to be produced. And this in times of also other agricultural commodities definitely growing in demand, in terms of natural resources being definitely at its limits in a number of places. Deforestation cannot form part of our further strategies. So we are challenged to increase efficiency and productivity. And yet the look needs definitely to go to the small-scale farmers, who in many places, due to this I was mentioned in the beginning, are having a production level far below averages. So in so many places we have a huge opportunity if we emphasize and focus more strongly on the livelihood situation of the producers and on their possibilities, on the small-scale farmers and the possibilities to participate more actively in the opportunities of the coffee market, to really get that coffee that the market will require to sustain its growth.
You mentioned a bit ago about the coffee crisis in the early 2000s. Tell our listeners who are not familiar with that, what took place then?
Okay, the coffee crisis was a situation of around 3 years, I would say, where the market prices dropped below production costs in almost everywhere. And this was triggered by superproduction coming from,
Vietnam?
I would not point necessarily to the countries, but yes, also the big producers like Vietnam, like Brazil, like Colombia, they definitely did a good job in taking or preparing or trying to take advantage of quite high prices by attractive price levels in the late 90s. So this definitely triggered a very strong investment on the side of the production, and led to a overproduction that so dramatically depressed prices for a period of time. And this was really a point where the coffee sector also said, my God, something is really seriously wrong here. And we need to pay more attention to aspects of sustainability. What do we want really? How do we expect our coffee sector to look like in the future? And what would be production practices that should form part of that future?
Interesting. Michael, what if people want to find more information out about the Neumann Foundation, where do we go to get that information?
Probably the best source is the website, www.hrnsstiftung.org. Other information definitely can also then be found in the blog, and I think that's probably the best.
Yeah, I'll have all that posted up. Michael, thank you so very much. Any final points you'd like to make to our listeners?
Yeah, maybe just the again a bit the attention to the opportunities that we do have in the coffee sector. In particular, a win-win situation if we look into the possibilities for small-scale farmers to also participate with their families from the opportunities of the growing market. They can definitely very well contribute to higher production levels, and yet at the same time find better living perspectives for them, and obviously for the young people who in so many places are migrating from rural areas. So coffee, I would think, is part of what we need to address more seriously in order to make rural environments also attractive for young people, and yet productivity, as you probably also will see, that income opportunities, triggered by opportunity, and also better market access are key to also support young people to find a motivation of getting involved in the coffee sector and contributing to our growth. So very systematic and very serious investments that are required. And yes, systematic, I would like to emphasize also on that one. As we are so active, we also need to lean back in a proper way and assess very seriously what are we doing well, what are we not doing well, and are we using our resources efficient enough. And I think there, again, the coffee sector has a lot to further explore and a lot to further learn.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you so very much for your time, Michael.
Dennis, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.
Great. All right.
Looking forward definitely to also follow the blog that you are developing around coffee.
Great. We will do that, and then I look forward to having you back on the air sometime. All the best.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.